All right, now we're going to try to do it right.
Okay. So it's a little bit of a tight shot just by nature of going vertical, but
Yeah.
we'll see how it goes.
No, we just wanted to do that. Push it live while we're doing it. Maybe scrape some video off of that.
Yep, sounds good. Okay.
I don't know how the audio is probably not gonna be a little funky, but that's gonna work okay.
Yeah, it'll be all right.
No.
All right, we were recording.
All right, now we gotta figure out what we're gonna talk about.
Audio. We didn't figure that out, did we? Camera recording. I'll get those webcams recording. We're ready to rock.
All the red lights are on.
Almost. One more. And recording. Okay. Just a clap. Cool. I need one of those slates. Those are cool.
I know. Even Max knew to do that.
Yeah.
He was enjoying that.
I'm gonna steal 3 of these and set them down here.
No, I'm just gonna keep them reserved because I know they're coming. All right, 3 o'clock. So
Push these.
Oh, here, I just moved it here.
Okay.
I didn't know if
I don't know if you thought
I
that
wanna
looked
keep
ugly
it-
on the table or whatever.
space is a premium on the table.
My back.
All right, are we ready?
These chairs are horribly uncomfortable,
Man,
but
I
they're
love
so
them.
quiet. You like these?
Oh yeah.
Really? I think it's the angle on my back because the back leans too far back. So if I sit up straight, it's just digging into my spine.
Yeah, like
Like
I
a
can't-
45.
I can
Up
say
here,
years
it's not
ago, my one of my professors, he was when I was working on my master's, and old Marine master sergeant guy, and like you're reading all this academic stuff and it's boring, and I'm not a fast reader, and I'm like, Doc, how do you do it? He said, you just sit in a wooden chair without a pad,
That'll do
and
it.
you just do it.
Yeah.
And look, I did. I sat in a chair for like 7 years through my master's and my doctorate degree. I finished both in 7 years. And at a wooden table, in a wooden chair at the dining room. And that was it for 7 years. And even still today I sit, you know, for the work day or whatever I'm doing on something without a pad.
Yeah.
And it like drives Leah crazy. Or like when you're at the house and we're all sitting around, we're at that tabletop talking, and then she gets up to go to the living room. Like, where are you going? She cannot stand that.
Yeah.
But I just got conditioned to do it, you know?
Yeah, it's like being at school. You know, we had an English professor who, I mean, just murdered us. She was ruthless. She was this AP English professor, and I credit any writing ability that I have to her.
To her.
I mean, she made us write harder papers than I ever wrote in college.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, I was business, but still, even so, I mean, she taught us a lot, and we hated her until we graduated, and then we loved her so much. She's amazing. She's great.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we would do is every now and again, when it had been a long week, she was super sweet and would kind of turn the lights down low. We'd get the bean bags and the comfy chairs out, and we would write in those. And it was a good break, and it was a good refresher. But boy, if it wasn't, it was unstructured and it was loose, right? And so, I mean, when you get back into hard chairs under the fluorescent lighting and everything's uncomfortable, it really kind of does get you to focus, you know, kind of like doing homework in bed is you get so much less done than if you just kind of sit rigid.
I think like for me, it's a physical trigger.
Right.
Like it's time to get busy.
Yeah.
It's time to work. You know, you want to watch TV, you sit on the couch. You ready to go to sleep, you go to the bed.
Right.
Mixing those environments, like it doesn't go well with me. Like I don't like to work on the bed because I'll go to sleep. But like Leah, I mean, I don't know if she does it. I mean, she's creative. Like like when we first met, you know, I'd finished my doctorate work and she was, oh man, she'd probably written 50, 60 books, you know, at that point, novels, and like it drove me crazy. Like she writes in the bathtub, she writes anything other than an office, you know, the hot tub. and I remember like, you should work at a desk from 8 to 5. You need more structured hours, you'd be productive. Like this is a woman that's written 85 novels and has hit the New York Times bestseller and USA Today bestseller 40 times. Like 40 times. And here I am gonna show her how to get it done, you know? But so it works for me. Like I need those triggers. Like she's always like, why don't we just like build a gym or put some weights out in the garage so you don't have to leave to go work out. But I know I'm not gonna work out.
Right.
Because I need that demarcation of you're like home, that's got its purpose. But if I'm gonna go train, I've got to leave the home And that's like the mental and physical trigger that I need.
Right.
It's like, it's time to work now.
Right.
You know? So yeah, those wooden chairs, like I love, like this is soft. This has got some bend to it.
Yeah.
I dig it.
I wonder if that's a gender thing a little bit, because I see that a lot is, you know, like my mom or my stepmom or people that I know that work from home, a lot of them will have kind of comfy spots near the living room and whatever else, but a lot of guys, if they have the option to, will build like a separate office on their property, like literally an entire building separate from their house. It's just the office. It's one little 10 by 10 room that they have their laptop in, and it's just that.
I think it is. It's that like going to work,
Mm-hmm.
whether going to work is another state or another country or another room or another little outbuilding on the property. I think it is. It's just that sense of, you know, purpose. Like I'm going to work.
Yeah.
You know, Leah wakes up, she'll open the laptop and she starts writing her next novel, and I'm like get out of bed, like do stuff first, you know? Like I always fancy myself like a free range chicken. But the reality is I'm very structured, very institutionalized. And a lot of that is just my career in law enforcement.
Right.
You know, it's a very structured, policy driven profession. And, you know, so even like everything. So like I have a morning routine, and if I don't follow that routine,
Throws the whole
then
day off.
something throws off. And I was at a sheriff's office for 21 years, and it was a big nationally accredited agency, and I was a division commander. We had a big patrol uniform division, and my sheriff came in, and so like this dude was, you know, in a big agency, he was like a celebrity, you know, and so we're talking and we're discussing high level theory and crime and data, and he just looks, he goes, "Where's your badge?" Like I'm in full dress with all the pins and ribbons and, you know, seniority marks, and I forgot my badge, you know?
Yeah.
But I had a routine, the way I had to dress out my uniform every morning, or usually the night before, and something had thrown me off that routine.
Yep.
You know? And even now, like in the mornings when I get up, I brush my teeth before I shower and shave or anything. And there'll be mornings where, you know, something's going on, and I'll jump in the shower. And like, there's 2 times that I can remember, probably in the last 8 years, I left the house and I had not brushed my teeth. And I turned around to go home, you know, and Leah's like, "Just get some gum." I'm like, I'm not getting gum.
It's not the same.
But just that little kink in the routine.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy.
Yeah. No, like, and there's, I don't know, and maybe it's a working thing or whatever else. Though I was never like this at any of my other jobs, but there is just some kind of rest and solitude that I find when I'm at work by myself getting things done, and I fall into a rhythm. Like you'll text me and I'm leaving here at like 4 a.m. because I've been gluing panels together or rewiring stuff or cable managing this or that. But I get here and I'm by myself, and all the other tenants are gone, and I'm not hearing people talking and yelling and whatever, and I've just got something playing or even just silence, and I feel so productive, and like I'll stay up all night long and I didn't think about it because I don't know, there's something about being alone and productive and getting into a rhythm and having a pattern of things. But yeah, in the same way, like, and I don't know how you do it, brushing your teeth first thing in the morning. I think that's disgusting. I hate the way that nasty mouth in the morning and toothpaste tastes. Like I always have to drink coffee and eat some breakfast first, and then I'll go back and brush my teeth.
Well, I figured Leah probably would hate the smell of like not being brushed, you know?
Yeah.
And I guess it is counterintuitive. I mean, you brush and then you go eat breakfast.
Yeah.
You know, then it's like, well, now I gotta go brush again, you know? But the alternative is, but it is, like I'll get that way where, and like I find that the later it gets, the more fatigued my body is, the more creative my mind is.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, I was actually telling Leah that, so last night I was looking through, man, I've got files on top of files, and I'm going back and I'm looking through content because I'm trying to pull stuff together for this podcast and for the book we're going to publish and the devotionals on the Bible app and every YouVersion Bible app. And like I get into like the years like 2017, 2018, 2019. And like you just start, it's a journal of your life. And I wrote so much content. Like we were doing we had a website, a blog. Our ministry was just starting, and I've written, I mean, like I said, since I retired in 2015, you know, I've written 50 books. And so I go back and so last night I'm looking, and like I just start kind of grieving about I'm looking at all the content. Oh, that's cool.
Just double checking that we were live.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I'm looking and like I'm reading all this, and a lot of it was like leaving, like going into the wilderness season. Because like when I left, I had 4 years left as the chief of police, to a full 30-year pension. I had a 4-year contract from the government. Like I had it made. All I had to do was just breathe for 4 years, and then God called me to retire and go into the ministry, and I did. And I thought I knew what I was doing because I've always been in control, of my work environment. And then I was like in total obscurity, and I was suffering, First year I gained 70 pounds. I was just in deep depression, and we moved from Louisiana, where I grew up, to Dallas, this was a big metropolitan area, and I didn't know my way around. I went from being the chief of police, like catered to, whether it's a restaurant or a barber shop, everywhere I went. And then we moved here, and like I couldn't get a table at Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
And like it messed me up because, my identity was grounded in what I did and not in whose I was. And, God wasn't going to use me like that. So it was really, really a tough experience, to try to get yourself together. But my whole routine had been thrown off. I went from being the chief of police in the office and all day and night to all of a sudden I'm following Leah around the globe, book signings and stuff like that. Like, it's cool to cheer your wife from behind. I'm good, But throughout, like I do, I support her, but like I still needed a sense of purpose, And so I didn't have the structure. But then I started writing, and that was my outlet. It was my basic journaling, And so anyway, last night, the reason I'm telling you that is I'm going through looking for content. And I told Leah, I was like, just seeing like just hundreds of thousands of written words about PTSD, about trauma, about pain, about recovery. It was like going back through those years of when I retired and went into that season of obscurity of wilderness. And really, all the trauma from 26 years of police work, 16 of those were special operations. Like, it all just was vomited on those pages. And going through the files, and it's like, cool that we've got a lot of content to work with. Really sucked that I went through that, So, but when I wrote all that is when the more fatigued I would be.
Yeah.
Like midnight, I would start writing. And because my body's out of the picture, and now it's just like my emotions and everything was visceral and raw.
Yeah, and that's really strange because I find myself, now that you mention it, I get all of my baseline blanket productive stuff that I don't have to think about done first thing in the morning. If I wake up, I go through my getting ready routine, but since I'm still in the process of getting hired right now, obviously I'm not restricted to a certain schedule.
Yeah.
So like I'll do all of my chores, all of my laundry, all of my everything right after I wake up. I don't have to think about folding my laundry. I don't have to think about this or that or whatever. But then it not only frees up my whole day, but then as it gets later and I get more tired, that's when I'm doing all of my big thinking, right?
Yeah.
I do find myself like a mad scientist late at night. As much as I usually am kind of an early bird kind of person, as I've grown a little bit older and I do stay up a little bit later now, I that's when I'm all over my whiteboards and I'm thinking about different ideas and whatever else. It's very strange. I wonder if anybody's done a study on that before. I'd be curious
there are.
think.
It is,
Okay.
and it's just that like the more fatigued you become, the more creative. Like in your natural day, right? You've got inhibitions, and a lot of are social and cultural and behavioral expectations and inhibitions. If you want to just scream like a crazy person in a crowded theater, like you just don't do it, right? That's common sense and inhibition. But then as your body gets tired, those inhibitions become less. Like when we got when we got the teens doing the show with us, like they'll start off, they're sitting up straight and they're this and that, and usually after 4 or 5 minutes, they're yawning or burping or picking zits, because now their attention's down, their inhibition, because their bodies and their minds becoming fatigued, So there are academic studies that show that,
That's cool.
And but yeah, like I, I'll get on something, it'll be midnight, 1 o'clock, and then it's like, oh, we need to do a website for this, and I will, and like I will put together a Wix, not like I'm doing the coding, but boom, I have a website, all the automation, everything, and it'll be 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, Leah, check it out, and she's been asleep, and I'm like, hey, check it out, I sent you a link to the website, but I think that's just what it is. You kind of get your body out of the way, you get your intellectual I guess you're more of your social inhibitions out the way, and then it's just emotion and creativity, you know. Now you got to balance it with the effects of fatigue,
Right.
you know. Well, like 2 months ago, we said, hey, let's do this podcast, and I know you're more on the tech side and social media stuff, and so we talked about it, and then I went in the office, and I kept sending you links to, hey, I did all the social media pages, I did the website, I did the automation. And look, I could have stayed, I probably did that night, I probably stayed up till 4 or 5 in the morning, you know? But you get that creative flow going.
Yeah.
And I think the worst thing to do is just to try to cut it off. And then you gotta restart it and replicate it.
Oh, and then it's never the same.
No, it's
you
not.
never want to stop because it's like, I'm never going to have this exact train of thought or perspective
Yeah,
again.
right.
Because it just is that, you feel, you got FOMO.
And you can, no, you're right. You can always come back and edit and, you know, like when we're helping authors, you know, a lot of times first time writers, and they're like, well, what am I gonna do with my money and my contract? Well, it's like, you've not written a page, you know? And they wanna know all about the writing, and it's like, you cannot edit a blank page. Right? Write it and get it there, and then we can work on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really that way with everything, you know? A lot of times, what is it, paralysis through analysis, you know? And you get into that role, and yeah, there, you know, you can be cautious, you can think, be prepared, but at some point you just gotta do it.
Right.
You know? I mean, like, I find it, well, I guess that's a good question for you, because you're in a different season. You know, you just graduated college, you're a couple months out from being married, so you've got this flex space in your life that you'll never have again.
Right.
You know? So as far as like, just do it. Like, are you like, let's just do it, or let's do it with some caution because I am about to get married and I am job hunting?
So, yeah, I think any normal person would kind of have a little bit of the balance, but I've always been a ready, fire, aim kind of person.
Yeah.
I think that's how they say it, right? Ready, fire, aim is like, I will jump headfirst into something before planning.
Yeah.
And I think that's the exact opposite of how my mom is kind of maybe where that comes from. Because she will research and get that analysis paralysis and then never do anything.
Yeah.
And whether it was because that frustrated me so much or just kind of how God created me, I've always been a head first kind of person.
Yeah.
And so with business, they started teaching now in universities and things like that, this idea of lean startup. You know, the traditional way of starting a business is always, you know, write out a 100-page business plan, take it to a bank, get a loan, and then you dump tens of millions of dollars into something that you've never started, right? Or, you know, maybe not that much, but certainly a large sum of money that you don't have. And people are like, then they just flop.
Right.
And it's some insane statistic of how many businesses actually succeed.
Sense.
But people are saying now, it's like, that's not realistic.
Mm-hmm.
That's not it's gonna put you in a bad spot personally with your own finances, right? You know, you're leveraging other people's money, but they have to get paid back somehow. Right? And so they talk about lean startup now. It's like, start small. You know, start selling tacos out of your dorm before you go buy a food truck.
Right.
See if, you know, A/B test. This is where you find out what people actually want.
Right.
Is you start by just giving them something small, low risk, sell 10 tacos, and if people like these certain ones, you learn your lessons cheap, fast, or you die and it you know, it all goes up in flames, but you lost $100 instead of 100,000.
But what you did gain was experience.
Exactly.
Right.
And you learned all those lessons for much, much cheaper instead of having these crazy, horrible stories about how you tanked a corporation.
No, it makes sense. I didn't know that was the term, but I mean, I totally get it, you know. And you do. I mean, if you stay small, you stay lean, you stay mobile, then it's easier to pivot.
Exactly.
Because you're not having to retool manufacturing and everything like that.
Yeah.
Now, if you're operating on a manufacturing scale, I mean, things differ obviously, but in this.
But you're not starting there on day one.
Right.
Right. You're making it out of your garage.
Yeah. I mean, you're not going to walk out of high school and be like, I've designed a car.
Right.
And it runs on wishes and unicorn dust, you know. But how cool is that? I mean, you're able to do those things. I mean, you know, we'll do that. Like, we'll write a book, or most of my stuff, I'll do that. And you know, maybe it's on, you know, one I have is Conquering Strongholds, and it's a 30-day guide for men on walking in purity, particularly sexual purity, but just walking in righteousness, you know. And so I'll do that, and then I'll develop a website, and I'll do workbooks, leader guide, study guide, a devotional, and things like that. And some of those things take off, and some of those things just tank. So boom, then I'm on to the next book, and I write, and then some of those things take off. So it's when you start lean, I can totally see that, you know. And then there's probably bigger life lessons that apply to more to the business world than that, you know?
Yeah.
I'm just thinking right off the bat, as far as men, the way that we relate to one another, you know, is that balancing those relationships when you just meet somebody, right? You know, I think a lot of times men, you know, we're so reserved in the way we approach other guys because you don't want to like, well, I don't want to think I'm weird, you know. So, you know, it's just kind of weird. It's this men dance that we do, and like in my career, it was easy because it was very social strata. Like if you know, I'm a chief of police. Like I don't really associate in much more than a you know supervisor way with the rank, you know, because they're not at my rank. So people that I associate with professionally would be chiefs of police and sheriffs and stuff like that. Or even I was working undercover. I didn't hang around with patrolmen. I didn't hang around with other my friends. Well, I would say my associates, not my friends. They were all special operations undercover people, you know. So it was easy to vet out like who you're gonna hang with. But then you get out of that world, and just like in the natural world, you know, the regular world, and it becomes harder for men to make friends because you don't have that measuring stick, you know, or maybe you do. Maybe you look out, you know, you look in the parking lot like, oh, he pulled up in a, you know, in a Jeep. That's my man, because I love Jeeps, you know. So there's ways to kind of vet that out.
Right.
But I would just say person to person, I think men don't do well connecting with other men on like intimate friendship levels, you know. And maybe we're afraid to like invest too much, and then we go too lean, and then it's just a surface. Hey, how's it going? Or that alpha nod, you know.
Yeah.
And that's where it ends. You know, you miss the opportunity for a great friendship. You know, like do you make friends? Like I know you meet people, but I'm talking like friendships.
You know, I am usually very open to making friends. I have attracted and repelled the people I want to be with very unintentionally. I mean, my entire life, really, truthfully. So, I mean, I have never made super close friends with the people that I didn't want to. And I never had to try. Like growing up in high school, in middle school, it was funny. We kind of called it the reject table. But we were the lunch table that was right when you walked in. Everybody knew exactly who we were. We were right there. But it was us, real tight-knit group of friends. And we always took the people nobody wanted. And we were kind of the reject table, but I was always super close with everybody. If there was a new kid, they would come to us, and we were always open to everybody. But then, eventually as time goes on, either they really like us, they really enjoy us, or they find some other friends that they're close to. Maybe they join the football team or whatever, and they moved on. Yeah. And it was like this cool thing where,
like a starter pack.
Exactly. We're the little, you know, come to us first because we're the only people who be nice to you. And then past that, once you find real friends, once they finally open up.
They get cultural cred.
Yeah.
Because now they're not just a loner; they're hanging out with a group of friends.
Right.
So let's say like a teenager or a young guy like that, right? Somebody in the wild, like what do they do? Like to make these connections. Like that's I just do. Like I see that as such a hard balance. You know, like when I was going to school, you know, in grade school, whatever. Like there were no computers, there was no social media. I mean, your phone was still on the wall. You know, you try to talk to your girlfriend in the kitchen, your family's there cooking and eating, and so, you know, like we were friends based on our classes, most classes. I mean, I graduated in 1983, and our class, you know, we're all connected mostly on Facebook, and those who still live in my hometown. But like nowadays, like how do guys connect with other guys unless it's, you know, we play on the same sports team or we're in the same band class or something.
Well, that's the start. Is guys like stuff. Guys like things. They like, you know, women are really good with people, generally speaking. And generally speaking, guys, we like to figure things out. We like objects. We like engineering. We like whatever. So if you're looking for just people that you can mesh with, find the people that are doing the things that you like to do. Yeah. That's really easy. Now, when you're in school, that's really easy because you're either in football or you're doing band stuff or you're doing, you know, whatever. As you get older, it's a little bit more tough. But like, you know, I found groups of people who get together and play certain games that I like or do gun stuff that I like or whatever. And I go hang out with them. Right. That's how you make, you know, surface level friends pretty easy. But if you really want to find like that inner circle of friends, you've got to find people who share the same values as you. Right. Because like some of my closest friends didn't. I mean, were a lot more athletic than me, or they liked stupid stuff like Star Wars. I'm gonna catch flack for that. I hate Star Wars so much. But you know, they liked a whole bunch of other things, and maybe we didn't always share the same interests, but we shared a lot of the same values. And that carried on so much further than, you know, both liking football or whatever.
Right,
you know?
right. No, that's a great point. I mean, you know, and then my next question was going to be, you know, how do you gauge like your level of vulnerability to people? But like you just answered part of that by saying if you share the same values, you know, then that makes it easier for you to start to open yourself up, like peeling those layers back. And you know, I see that as a big problem with young people today, is like with social media. Like, I mean, I forgot what it was called. I was reading a story about a 16-year-old in Mississippi, and oh my gosh, like, sextortion. And it was, you know, pretended to be a woman and a girl or whatever, and convinced this kid to videotape, I guess probably himself masturbating or some sex act, you know. And then he sent it to him. And then they get it and they're like, surprise, I'm not a smoking hot 15-year-old girl that lives right down the street. I'm actually some dude in Nigeria. Now give me $1,000, you know.
Wow.
The kid wound up killing himself.
Wow, yeah.
And I mean, you know, I just could not imagine that level of pressure. You know, like when I did a lot of stupid stuff growing up, maybe my friends and probably their parents found out, and then I get home and, you know, and that was the extent of it.
Right.
Like, oh my gosh, I hope the teacher doesn't find out.
It's contained to neighborhood gossip, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. You know, and then there was no cameras. You know, maybe somebody was drawing a picture over there on their Etch-a-Sketch or something. But like now to know, like any indiscretion, even if it's not illegal, unethical, immoral, like running a red light, right? Something. I mean, it may not seem like a big deal. But if you're in a level of like where there's an expectation of high integrity, I mean, now you're looking at the entire population of the social media planet that you know, just the pressure to put on somebody. And so, you know, that would be enough, I would think, for most people to just shriek and like you know, like say Ellie. You know, Ellie's a different species. Like she doesn't want to get on social media, which I love, but she has accounts on certain things just to watch. Very voyeuristic. But she doesn't comment, she doesn't want to produce anything, and that's cool, you know. But then you go to the other side, and where they're sending sex pics and nudes and all, and they just, like, they're too vulnerable, right? I mean, without any common sense. But they're kids. Like, unless their parents are talking to them about these things, how are they supposed to know, like, how far is too far? Like, this is not healthy for growing a relationship. Like, you don't have to send this person, you know, private part pics to be their friend. Like, how do we convey that message to teenagers and young people?
Yeah, well, there's kind of two pieces to that, and it got a lot deeper than I thought the question was going to be. I thought it was going to be a lot easier to answer than that, but no, that's totally fine. Like, so backing it up to not as deep.
We need a code.
Well, I mean,
Just start blinking your eyes
like this all the time.
I'm being held captive. Rescue me.
Well, apparently I blink weird. Apparently I don't blink like in time. I kind of like offset it like this, and I don't know, whatever it is. I don't know, maybe I have a lazy eye or something. But so it's kind of two-part, right? For one, don't cast your pearls before swine.
Yeah.
If you're about to tell somebody something personal about your life or whatever, and understand why you're saying it, first of all. If you're saying it to get attention, it's probably not good enough to say it anyway. It's not a good reason. If you're saying, you know, if you're telling somebody about your trauma because you want them to feel bad for you and whatever, then that's a problem you have to work out for yourself.
Right.
But if you're telling somebody something legitimately with a concern of, hey, maybe they're going to talk to me about it or they're going to care, really analyze if they will before you just start dumping your life on them.
Yeah.
You know, because I have plenty of friends that I'm somewhat close to, but if I come to them with my life problems, I mean, that's just not the level of friendship that they're at.
Right.
They're not. We're at friendship level where we go play a game and we go our separate ways, right? And we have a good time, and that's okay. But kind of putting people into, you know, that closeness zone, those circles, and understanding what levels of your life that you want to share with them. And that's okay to not have 1 million people that you share your life with. In fact, it's a good thing to not share your life with 1 million people.
Right.
But then also guarding your heart from the opinions of other people that don't matter to you.
Yeah.
Is a big, huge one. When your entire life is broadcast to the entire world, being able to sift out who you really care about hearing from, and it's hard. I mean, it really is. If you've published anything on social media and you just get dogged on by everybody, whether you know them or not, it hurts and it sucks.
Well,
right?
I mean, Leah, I mean, again, she's written 85 novels.
That's crazy.
And, I mean, she's been very successful. 40 times New York Times bestseller and USA Today bestseller. And she has hundreds of thousands of reviews posted. Amazon, iBooks, iTunes, Barnes, everywhere that books are sold, right? And she doesn't read them. She doesn't read the reviews because she did in the beginning, And the worst thing you can do is believe positive press, and like, oh, I got a 5-star review. This is the best author that's ever typed 2 words together, and it's like, yay! And then you get a 1-star review. It's like, you suck. I can't ever write again. And look, that's all it takes sometimes.
Right.
Like, you don't even see, they don't even, like Amazon, right? They don't even have verified purchase next to their review. Like, that's somebody that got a freebie, or they just went on and logged in, right? And they, the troll without the profile picture. And so, like, when I started writing books, and like every book I've written, there's always a 1-star review, and there's no profile picture, and the name's like,
it's got a whole bunch of numbers in it, and it's not a real person.
And like, all of them, terrible, worst thing. And they all happen like a day or 2 after the books are released, And then I've got to think, like, I was a cop for 26 years. There's probably people who don't celebrate my success before bed. I hate you, I'm going to give you a 1-star review. But a lot of writers, we've friended, for almost 20 years in writing, publishing, and some people, it crushes them. These are anonymous trolls, like social media, like we're doing this podcast, or my personal YouTube page. And man, you start talking about Christ. I don't care what you talk about. There's always going to be a critic.
Yeah.
But man, look, like, the big, and I always think it's funny. It's like, you're old and your tattoos are stupid. I'm like, okay, well, I'm canceling my account.
Only one of those things is true.
Yeah. And they're not stupid. But it's like that. It's like, but it's crazy. Yeah. I mean, I'll have guys like come on my page and my social media, and they're like, you need to move along with talking about Jesus all the time. I'm like, it's my channel. You came, you stopped, you watched the video, and then you left the comment. It's like, how about you move along, But it would be the same thing, like you said, if I'm vomiting my experience or my trauma or everything to a person who doesn't care, number one, and you're not looking for that level of relational empathy, number two, and somebody that you shouldn't invest in anyway, But it's tough. I mean, look, to be young, I don't know what it's like to be young in this age of social media and everything, but it's got to be tough.
Yeah, teenagers nowadays are carrying around their own personal boyfriend and girlfriend in their pocket on social media. It's just like everything that you do that you put on social media, it's good and bad in both ways. Like, it's hard. Either they're on social media and everybody loves them, and so it gives them this inflated ego, but then it also ties all of their self-worth to social media, or they're getting slammed on social media, and then they're tying all of their self-worth to it, and they're saying, oh, I'm a horrible person, blah, 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 blah. Either way, they have no grounding or roots in other people and in their own identity.
Or real people.
And certainly, real people, right? Personal people that they're actually connected with.
Yeah.
And certainly not their identity in Christ.
Right.
And so it's all of these things that compound, and it's just like, I don't know what the solution is other than to grow up a little bit more and get off social media, and or balance yourself or whatever it is, but it's one of the best and worst things to ever have happened to people, I think. It really is.
No, it's tough. It's like, I always laugh. Like, I was wild in my younger days, like super, like, you may have been at the table sometimes, but, I would get into telling stories for supper, and not law enforcement. I don't tell those war stories, but like, back in the day, college
stories.
And I start telling those stories, and like the kids are, like, they're fascinated. Like, they've not even seen a movie that they're like, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
And then, I realize, like, this is making an impression on these kids, Like, just, share a little bit, but, like when I was 21, I was in college, and I wasn't a good student, I my whole life I wanted to play football. I was going to play professional football. Play college. I was going to go to college. I did go to college. I was going to play college ball. horrible compound fracture in my left leg, and I never recovered from that. And so I was a linebacker, and then when I did get into college, I was playing scared. Like I was one eye on somebody coming, the other eye on the ball carrier or the blocker, and you can't play scared, you know. So my head was always on a swivel, and not in a good way. So by the time I was 21, it was out of my system, you know. So anyway, now I'm just in a, you know, I was a good student, but I hated school.
Yeah.
And then I was a good athlete, but I was wounded. I never got over that injury. So I started bartending and bouncing. You know, I was big. I was about 260 pounds back then in powerlifting, bodybuilding, and then like at 21, my folks bought me a bar room in a major college town. 21 years old, I owned a bar in a major college town.
That was a good idea.
It's a great idea for me, you know. And, you know, and I was in a fraternity, and I never was able to become active. I was like an eternal pledge because I couldn't get my GPA up over 0.8, you know. But I had the bar. Anyway, so some of the stories. One night I'm telling Leah knew it, but so, you know, at the end of the night, you got all this cash, and so we've been drinking, and which is another bad thing. You shouldn't be drinking if you're supposed to be in charge of a bar. And we're going down the main street in this college town, and I remember just taking that bag full of cash, and I just threw it up in the air because I'm in the back of the truck, and because I didn't want to mess up the front of the truck. After drinking all night, and like all this cash, like thousands of dollars, just floating in the air. I was drunk. You know, I was living in darkness. I didn't know. And like the kids, a couple months, a year later, hey, tell us about that time you were drunk and threw all that money. I'm like, I said, I've got to stop telling these stories, you know? But look, thank goodness there was no social media. There was nothing, but maybe the kid had the Vivitar camera. Y'all don't know that. It's like a little camera, and it had, you advance the film, had the little ball, the cube on the top, you know? I mean, that's the extent of it.
Yeah.
But, so I cannot imagine, like, you know, the life that I lived in darkness, had that been recorded and documented and journaled.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
It is horrible, and, you know, but it's doable. Because, I mean, if you think about it, it's like, if today my entire life was publicized, every dark secret and embarrassing story and everything was put forth for the entire world to see.
Yeah.
I mean, there would be some people who thought it was kind of funny or whatever, some people who didn't take it too seriously, some people who laughed and enjoyed it, but then some people who would just tear me down for everything.
Yeah.
And absolutely, and that's true.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'm coming home to Abba and to my mom and to my brother and to you guys, and it's like, you guys are the ones who care about me and who have any say, or should have any say or weight or interest in my life. And so it's like, even if my entire life was spilled on social media right now, it should not be able to cripple me as a person.
Right.
It shouldn't.
Right.
I mean,
and that's a great measuring stick. I mean, you're right, before you do anything, you know, I always talk about, you know, what was the old thing about what would Jesus do, you know? And even before you open your mouth, like, would Jesus say that? I mean, you know, we are created in the image of God. So, you know, it's like when people are like, oh, you know, I just can't get over this depression, you know, I'm just throwing something out there, or eating obsession, let's say that, right? It's like, well, Jesus didn't have an eating obsession, you know? Well, I'm not Jesus. Well, you're not, but you're made in his image, right? And the goal is to be righteous through sanctification, so you are more like Jesus. And I think we give ourselves that out, because like, well, I'm only human. I'm only human. And I preached on that before. You know, it's like if you're saved and you have Jesus as your Savior, you have the Holy Spirit living inside of you. I mean, you were 1/3 perfect. God's perfect righteousness, not your own. So you have God living inside of you. You have to. First Ephesians 1 tells us that you're sealed by the Holy Spirit. Like you're weatherproofed when you receive Christ. So to say like, well, I'm only human. Well, yeah, your body and your soul are, but your spirit is the Holy Spirit, you know? So we look for those outs. So like you said, a great way to measure is, I always think like, would Jesus do that? But a more practical term is, if your life was spilled on social media, like what would be the effects, you know? And so the goal is to live your life in such a way. The old thing was like, so that the preacher doesn't have to lie at your funeral. Yeah. But in a more contemporary day-to-day thing, is what if it was?
Yeah, what would be the effects, but then also how would you let it affect you?
Mm-hmm.
Because yes, we are only human, and we're not using that as an excuse to make further mistakes.
Right.
But we're understanding that all of our previous mistakes have happened.
Right.
Right. And even if so, you're growing as a person. You're on this road to sanctification, and you're working every single day to be more like Christ.
Right.
But you're not yet.
Right.
And things are going to happen. You're going to say or do dumb things. Are you in an appropriate enough and an educated enough and mature enough mental state and emotional state for something like that to happen?
Yeah. And a lot of people are not.
No, I mean
you see these kids.
I like to think that I am, but maybe I'm not. It's something that we always need to check.
But that's the key, right?
Right.
It's always having an objective check.
Yeah.
I mean, just, we always say, check yourself. Before we went out on a SWAT roll, it was check yourself. And what that meant, make sure your weapon's loaded, make sure that there's nothing tangling or bangling or gonna get caught up in anything. Make sure your gear's tight. So we said it in jest, but we understood the idea was that it was time for a gear and weapons check. And because if you get in the heat and you forgot a magazine or you didn't, I've literally had SWAT operators that looked at me before we actually went through a door, and it's like, can I load my weapon now? I'm like, no.
You have a spare mag?
Like, you go sit over there and then we'll reassign you, but it is. And so you're right to say, like if my life spilled on social media, I live my life in a way that we're pretty transparent. I like to post on social media and we do this, and I have another YouTube channel. And, like we said in another podcast, like all of us driving, that we're all on that Life 360 app. And what that means is every day, all day, you, the girls, Leah, you know where I am. I know where you are. And none of us have a problem. None of us have a problem with that, because we should not be anywhere that we should not be. And none of us have an issue with, like it was, what morning was that? It was like 4 o'clock in the morning, and I see movement on the, and I'm like, it's Keaton. And I'm like, are you at the church? Yeah. And then you show back up at 6:30, they're like, I'm back. I knew that because I saw the alert from the app, you know?
Had to go get me some Chick-fil-A at Home Depot.
Oh my gosh. Chick-fil-A at Home Depot.
I went to Home Depot to get some hardware, and I was like, I'll get some Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A opened up at the same time and got me some little chicken minis. It was nice.
But that is, and like some people are like, oh, that's boring, actually, Leah and I were meeting with someone a couple weeks ago about living in righteousness, and they were not, and they were trying to conceal it for different reasons, but that's their business, and so the person starts like, well, like the issue was that was lying, and they're like, well, I have a right to privacy, well, yeah, you do. And Leah was very discerning. She goes, there's a difference between like confidentiality and then secrecy, And so while we respect your privacy and your confidentiality, the fact that you're keeping secrets, we don't respect that.
Right.
And we can't be in covenant with you because you don't understand the difference, So us, it's like we make as a family that we don't have secrets. We're open, we talk openly, and that's why, me and you and the other 3 can sit on a podcast and we can talk about, now with the younger boys, it's always going to be age appropriate, but anything from money to girlfriends to puberty to pornography to marriage, nothing's off the table. Not because we got a camera rolling, but because since we've all been family, we've always made that commitment to be open and transparent.
Right. Well, and that's a great distinction that you said. Difference between like privacy and secrecy is like, yeah, there's still privacy. We don't change in front of each other. We're not like no doors in the house or anything like that. Like there is at one point or at some point there is a boundary of privacy, but there is no secrecy.
Right.
There isn't a password on your phone to where we couldn't go dig through all your stuff. Not that we do, but we could. There's not. We don't turn our location off on our phone so that y'all can't track us because there's nothing secretive, right? There's privacy when it's appropriate, but secrecy is the problem, right?
That's the problem.
And that's how teenagers are, especially. But yeah, that's really good.
No, and then so today, you really do, because your life's wide open. Whether a couple of weeks ago I'm at the gym with the boys, and there's like 3 girls there, and they're probably teenage girls, and they've got a tripod. Like, this is the gym. They got a tripod and one of those lights, you know?
Yeah, the little ring
You know what I'm
lights.
talking- Yeah, ring lights. And they're like filming.
At the Planet Fitness right here.
Yeah,
That's
they're
funny.
filming like workout.
Mhm.
I don't know what they're doing, but they're videotaping, or I don't know. Do you videotape with your phone? I guess
Yeah,
not. You gotta
that's not
tape.
videotape,
All right.
but yeah. We know what you mean.
So, like they're doing this, like no shame, no embarrassment. You know, like I would not even take a selfie of my in the gym. You know, it's just crazy. But like the boys, you know, Graham, he's watching and look, he's getting in the background, and I'm thinking, you have no idea the purpose or intention or the distribution of these people's video.
Yeah.
I mean,
Just
you
little
don't.
Graham picking his nose in the back.
I mean, they might be, you know, they might be the next Kardashians. Like, I don't know. But they also might be child sex traffickers.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? So the fact that Graham doesn't have a phone, so he's not living his life out in public, you're still exposed when you're in public,
Right.
is the point I'm making, you know? So, you know, you have to set those boundaries and those barriers. And I just think about kids, man. Even like, you know, we've always been restrictive on hours. I don't think any of our kids are really active on social media, you know, and that's great. You know, they have it for certain things. I mean, I know like you have Facebook, so you could run the live feeds for Thursdays and stuff like that. But you know, you have to be super intentional about how much exposure.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting that you brought that up. It kind of brought something to me. It's like, it is good and healthy, and the place we want to be is low secrecy, high privacy, right?
Mhm.
Privacy works necessarily is a
Yeah.
good thing. Secrecy is not. But as a culture, and especially kids my age, it's completely flipped.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like there's no privacy anymore. You
Right.
broadcast your entire morning routine, time at the gym, everything is out there public. You're good, you're bad, you're ugly, you're everything. And there's all this secrecy all the time.
Sure.
And it's so strange how that kind of flip-flops to
Yeah.
what is considered probably healthy boundaries
Yeah.
and you know, not being secretive about things, being
Yeah.
honest
Yeah.
with people. And then there's this like no privacy at all, but this kind of manufactured vulnerability that we have on social media. It's really
Have
interesting.
you seen that trend where, what is it called, like selfie cry or something?
I heard about this a little bit from when Lisa was here on Saturday.
Oh my gosh, it blows
think it
my
was.
mind. Like I don't think it. I see it and I scroll past it, you know. But you know, it started to catch my attention. Like, okay, you lost your dog. I dig it.
Mhm.
But like, why are you recording yourself crying in your moment of grief?
Content. It's good content.
And that's what it is.
That's what
you
it
know?
is.
I mean, taking selfies of yourself crying. Like, if I'm grieving to the point that I've got tears, I mean, I'm not going to be taking a selfie of
Right.
that. And so, you know, so that should be confidential. Those moments of grief and grieving, you know, it should. But, you know, the point I was alluding to is on the secrecy, like you said, is you grow up and it's all about secrecy. And the reality is you're not being secret because you're exposing everything out here, manufactured, you know, face value. But back here, you're keeping secrets, right? And it could be everything from your friends to your identity or addictions and whatever the case is. But you know, you grow up in a life based on secrecy, and then there becomes like a rush, like an adrenaline, because of secrecy. Like, oh, I pulled some. Like as kids, oh, I got away with something. My parents
Absolutely.
didn't find out. That's cool. That's just mischievousness, you know. But then when that becomes your life's pattern, and then you enter into a relationship with somebody, you know. And then, you know, say, you know, we're talking to guys, you know, and then, you know, their girlfriend, and then, you know, so now you're keeping secrets. You're keeping secrets from your parents and your peers, and then you start keeping secrets from her, and then you grow into a serious relationship, you're married, and then it's like, oh, we're married, we're totally transparent, there's gonna be no secrets. And then you find that there's no flame to that relationship, because everything in your life's pattern has been about manipulation and secret keeping. You know, so that's what I love, like with you and Abla, is that there is no secrecy. There's privacy. There's confidentiality. Maybe you didn't tell her where y'all were going last night for y'all's anniversary. You know, I mean, that's a cool secret, right? But the fact that you're living a double life is not a cool secret,
Right.
And I'm not saying you are,
I
but
know
but a
what you
lot
mean,
of people do.
Mhm.
You know, so it is tough. I mean, it's tough. I don't know. Like you said, I don't know the answer. I mean, the answer, like Graham would say,
It's gone.
is God. Yeah. I'm like, well, give me some tangible, Graham. Well, Jesus. I think it was funny that day you were asking, like, well, I was trying to get him, like, if you're a young guy, and you don't have a dad, or the dad's absent, or like where do you find positive role models? God. That's good, Graham. Who else? Jesus. Who else? Paul. And then what did he say? Ruth?
Ruth.
It's like, that's not even a guy, Graham.
Yeah.
Oh,
He's
my
just running
gosh.
through the list. Yeah.
I'm
He's so
thinking,
funny.
what about your parents?
I guess y'all didn't make the cut.
Poor Graham. He's getting there.
Yeah.
He's a good fella. But so let me ask you this. So the last show, I've got a list from content, and I threw a word at you, and you did a good job.
Well, thanks.
And so these are I've written some content years ago on the qualities and characteristics of a good man. Good being defined as a good godly man, a biblical man, an alpha male. And again, I've really been blown away when I've really been convicted on the nature of man as a lion and lamb, or in the secular world, like warrior poet. And so, where does the example come from? To me, really the scripture that changed my life is 1 Corinthians 16, 13, 14. It says, be strong, stand firm, act like men. I'm like, I do it. And then 14 says, and all you do in love. Mm-hmm. And like for most of my life, even after I was saved at 25, like I missed that component of doing all in love, And so it really changed my life. So when this conviction for men's ministry came, and then over the last year, about like the lion lamb, I love that dichotomy, because that's what it takes. Like if all you do is go around roaring and beating your chest, I'm the protector, I'm an alpha, blah, blah, blah. Then what you do is, you may run away, you may run off an attacker, but you wind up hurting your family, the people that you should be vulnerable to, And then of course, if you're only a lamb, then you're really no good as far as protecting and providing your family. Mm-hmm. So it's finding the balance, and that's all biblical and everything. So anyway, the point I'm making is, so I've written a lot of content, and the last show, I threw compassion out at you, and it really sparked some great stuff, So the second characteristic that I had in some of my older content was the word servant. And as a character or a quality of a good, godly man, a good friend, a good husband, a good brother, a good dude, whatever. Where's your heart on the word servant? Like, what does that stir in you?
That's interesting. The first thing that you said when you brought up the word servant was, I can't remember who said it. I think it was some celebrity or something, but it was a very cynical view of masculinity and being a provider and serving others. Somebody, I can't remember again who said it, but they said, your only value, only worth, only importance as a man is how much money you can provide for your family, what job you have, what you can do for your family. That's it, and that's where it ends, right? Yeah. And that's like a really kind of sad view of what it is to be a man. I mean, it doesn't end there, and it's not all about that, but that is certainly a component that's been kind of twisted unhealthily both ways in our world. But I mean, Christ was a servant, if we want to take it back to Christ and model.
Well, that's what he said, right?
Yeah.
He came to serve, not to be served.
Exactly.
I mean, he was the chief feet washer.
Yeah, and that's how we should be as men, is that we take care of things not because it's the only way that we have value, but it's because it's a way that we show love. Right. It's a way that we care for other people. Whether it's, getting a job and providing for the family, mm-hmm. whether it's taking out the trash or lifting something heavy, whether it's, whatever it is, as men, it is a core component of how we show other people, especially our families, love. Right? So that was just the first
No, that's
thought.
Perfect. I mean, it is. I mean, because you do. And I think, when you were talking about, you get a job, you make money, how many cars, or what type of cars are in your garage, and, toys for boys, that kind of thing. And I think that's where men really attach their value, and is that because those are tangible metrics. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, it's like, how do you measure compassion? How do you measure loyalty or love or friendship or kindness? So those are the soft metrics that aren't necessarily measurable, And I like to give the example in church, when, my pet peeve, one of my many pet peeves is when people are like, I love you so much, you'll never know. Like, why would you do that?
Why are you keeping it a secret?
Why are you keeping it a secret? like you can quantify your, don't do that. Like there's some unrealistic romantic notion of like, you'll never know how much I love you. Like, that's stupid,
Yeah,
Like,
you know
it's
exactly
stupid,
how much I
you
love
know?
you. Whether I'm hanging out with you or taking you out on a date, or
That's
whether
it.
I'm not hanging out with you.
And
It's
it's
a very
not
clear
by
line.
the car, like I bought you this house, I love you. No, you want to live in that house and I just happen to be with you, you know? But you know, I always give the example of, you know, like what would Jesus do? What would God do, right? And God can quantify how much he loves us. I mean, like if the Bible just said, you'll never know how much I love you. Like, bro, like that's not cutting it, you know? But you go to John 3:16 and he says, for God so loved the world. Well, how much did he love? That he gave his only begotten son.
Mhm.
Wow. Like that's immeasurable that I can relate to, you know? And so I think with men, people, probably particularly men, is we're looking for that measurable so that we can show I'm successful.
Right.
I make X number of dollars, you know? And I've shared that with you before, you know, like in my career, you know, your peers were those on the same rank structure. And, you know, that means that we've all been through experience. So like in law enforcement, military, even outlaw gangs, you know, patches and pins and ribbons. And, you know, so I looked at that when I would come up to another police officer. You know, like we had these seniority hash marks on your uniform, long sleeve uniforms. And for every X number of years, you had a hash. So I would look at how many gold bars were on your sleeve. I would look on your epaulets to see what your rank was, you know. On these, you know, these ribbons, military campaign ribbons, law enforcement has them for different things. But like I would measure everything, you know. And if you were like a sergeant or a lieutenant when I was the chief of police or a division commander, like I was always courteous and professional with people, but I knew like this wasn't going to be a peer or substantial relationship. Unless, as a commander or a chief of police, like I needed your resources, you know? And we do that in the business world, you know? It's like, oh, I'm the CEO, oh, I'm the janitor, right? I mean, whatever. But good CEOs value everybody from the janitor up. And that was really one of the things that I had to be freed from after I retired, was kind of that institutionalization of like strategy, putting people in social stratas, economic, professional stratas. And I was still compartmentalizing my associates, you know. And so I've shared that with you. When I was 50 and God called me to retire from law enforcement, I did as a chief of police, and I didn't have any friends. I had subordinates that worked for me, but like somebody I could call and like, bro, I'm struggling, or hey man, marriage is going. I didn't have anybody. Like the only people in my phone after 26 years were cops. That was it.
Yeah.
And I prayed. I started praying, and like God hit me. He's like, he calls me dude sometimes, you know. And he's like, dude, the reason you don't have friends is because you're not a good friend to have. And I'm like, God, like, why are you coming down so hard on me? You know, like, it's like, that's called conviction. It's true, you know? And, you know, I realized that I was not a good friend to have. You know, I thought I was. I'm like, man, everybody should have a friend like me. But I was not a good person to be friends with, because I looked at what could you do for me, right? And then, you know, then these last 8 years, you know, through ministry, and like I've told you before, like I don't really know what any of my male friends do, because I don't care. I care that they're healthy and they're happy and they're productive, but what their job or title is to me, it has no relationship. Like I love them because I love them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't love them because of what they can do for me, you know?
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. It comes back to what you said about quantifiable love, right? You know, what can you do for me that's quantifiable? What rank do you have that I can utilize? What money do you have that I can have? Whatever that's quantifiable. But it's not the quantifiable types of love that really matter in the end, or at least that make the most impact, right? This guy was talking, and you can kind of bring it back to whether it's relationships or whether it's going to the gym. Right? If you go in the gym and you work out every single day, you're not seeing the quantifiable differences every single day.
Right.
You see it over a long span.
Right.
And in the same way with relationships, you know, you say good morning to your significant other every single morning. Right? There's no quantifiable amount of love that shows every single time you do it, but over 18 years of doing something as simple as that, I mean, you've built a relationship and a bond and a trust, and that's the stuff that like anchors you. You know, all the results in the gym of every single day that you went, that's what shows in the long run, not the one big thing you did here or there.
Yeah, that one time you curled more weight.
Right, exactly.
Okay, but then you hadn't been back since then.
Right, exactly. And so that's where, you know, people start to start to fall off the wagon, start to, okay, I went into the gym and I didn't see instant results.
Yeah.
Oh, I texted this person or I did this one thing or whatever, and it didn't work out.
Yeah.
So it must not work.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
and that's not how it is.
That's funny because texting, because that's when God convicted me, was that like you're not a good friend to have, and that's why you don't have any friends. And the truth was, I didn't know how. So he gave me a guy's name, and we're all riding a big motorcycle group as a marriage ministry to a church, not a gang. And he goes, I want you to pursue him. I'm like, oh man, kind of hard to connect with, pursue him. So I sent a text like, hey, how's it going? Okay. You gonna be at church this weekend? Maybe we can hang out. I don't know. All right, God, you trying to embarrass me? He's like,
it must not work.
Pursue, yeah,
right.
Pursue. And look, it went on for a while. I'd be like, man, I'm praying for you. I'm fine. Like, all right. I mean, so finally, Lee and I are meeting with them for supper one night after church. So we come walking out of this restaurant, and Leah and his wife had gone before us, and then he doesn't grab, but he holds my arm, and he just squares up, and he's looking straight in my face, and he's like, I know what you're doing. And I step into a 3-point fighting stance, it's on in front of the Mexican restaurant, And he goes, I'm like, really? I was caught off guard. And he goes, you're trying to be my friend. I don't have any friends. I don't know how to respond to that. And look, it hit me. It hit me. And I'm like, well, you do now. And as soon as that interaction, the Holy Spirit's like, now you pursue every man the way you pursued him. And I have for these last 8 years. Every relationship. Now I'm not saying I'm friends with every man, and I don't want to be friends with every person.
You don't have the capacity to do so.
Right.
Right.
And so I have relationships at different levels, and I mean men that I love. And I pursued them, and then they reciprocated. But like you said, it wasn't like a greeting at the door, like, hey, how's it going? We're going to be best friends,
Right.
No, there's a connection, there's a respect. And then in the supernatural world, there's a discernment that this person is legitimate. They love Jesus. And so you talk about values. That's the value that I connect with. Men that are my friends, my brothers, is we share that one value, is that we love Jesus. Now, there's guys I meet all the time, guys in the gym, and they're not believers, and we're cool. I like them. But I would never spend the quality time I spend with them, because I've been called to pour my oil into these other men, mentoring, discipling them. Now, if somebody's like a non-believer, and I'm not being like, oh, I'm separationist, but
right.
But these are the men. I love these men because we speak the same language. If I'm sitting here with somebody who loves Satan, we're not going to have a whole lot to talk. We can debate, we can argue, but we're speaking two different computer software languages speaking each other. Now if they're interested genuinely in knowing about what I value, I'll share it. I won't shove it down your throat, but I'll share it with you.
Right, and that's not to say that people can't move up and down, in and out of these circles of closeness, right? And they should be able to. You should be able to say, okay, I'm discipling this person, or I'm helping evangelize this person. That's not somebody that you go and you bring home and you have dinner with and you share your entire family life with them. You keep them at arm's length for a time when it's appropriate to do so. And then as their heart softens, or as you get to know them better, or as they grow, or as you grow, whatever the situation is, then they start moving further into those circles. And it's not like a protection in a bad way kind of way, but it is. It's guarding your heart, it's guarding your life, it's guarding your family,
As soon as you said that, the word manipulation came to my mind, and that's, again, it's just a result of a very wicked, woke world. But a lot of times, these people that should be mentoring people. So I'll give you an example, like my spiritual father, Larry Titus. I love him. And I was talking to him years back, and I'm like, about discipling men. And I'm like, mentoring. And I'm like, is there like a program, a software, a book, And he goes, there are. And he said, you can put a man through that, and have him check off all the boxes. And he said, at the end of that, is he going to look like you, or is he going to look like Christ? And I'm like, ooh, I get it. And so, but what happens with men is you got to be careful, because instead of projecting the image of Christ, like say you, right? So we kind of in a mentor slash peer relationship thing, right? We've known each other a long time. Like I don't want you to look like me. Like I only want you to follow me as long as you see Jesus in me.
Mm-hmm.
But there's times when I don't act like Jesus. You know, I don't even act like myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I trust that you have the discernment because we're close and we're in proximity all the time. You know, I would never expect you to be like, well, that's cool because he did it.
Right.
No, your discernment says, man, that wasn't cool. Now, I forgive him. I mean, or I understand. But even Paul says that, follow me as I follow Christ. And that's what I think turns a lot of guys off. Because it turns into situations of manipulation and control. It's an ego thing. Oh, I got all these followers. And it goes back to what you said, social media. And there's those studies about endorphins that are released, and it's a drug when you see that little like. And now it's like not just a thumbs up; it could be a heart.
Right.
That's the big algorithm, So it comes into that false affirmation, and a lot of that you said that earlier too is when your identity's not grounded in whose you are, not who you are or what you do. Those little things like a like or a 5-star review can really falsely elevate you, and then the others can bring you down, But it really is important that like for people like God, like so we're talking like mostly like I would say mid-teens to 35 and stuff, right? And so they should be in a relationship and be a mentor.